You think your willingness to explain yourself is a sign of integrity. You think that if you just use the right words, the perfect logic, the world will finally understand your value. It is a fatal delusion. The modern world trains you to over-explain, to participate in the chaotic marketplace of validation. But the brutal truth is this: explaining your mind to those committed to misunderstanding you is not noble. It is intellectual suicide. You are running a highly advanced operating system on a machine that was only built to process noise. Every time you defend your choices, your vision, or your boundaries, you hand over the remote control of your nervous system to a lesser mind. You provide them with exactly what they starve for: friction. And friction is the oxygen of the insecure. To break the cycle of exhaustion, you must master the ruthless art of strategic silence. Silence is not a passive retreat. It is an armored quarantine. When you introduce logic to an irrational mind, they do not see an opportunity to grow. They see an existential threat to their fragile ego. The human ego will gladly burn down the entire world before it admits its own inadequacy. Therefore, you do not argue with a hurricane. You do not try to educate a flood. You seek higher ground, and you let the storm destroy itself. In the mechanics of psychological dominance, information is currency. When you speak, when you argue, you expose your vulnerabilities, your maps, and your triggers. But when you deploy silence, you create a terrifying asymmetry. You become a black box, a mirror that reflects their own chaotic noise back at them, while your mind remains hidden behind a fortress of absolute detachment. Look at the elite history of power. King Louis XIV of France built his absolute monarchy not through loud proclamations, but through calculated silence. When his ministers and generals would bring him urgent, chaotic crises, debating passionately in front of his throne, the king would listen in total stillness. He would offer no anger, no smile, no validation. When they finished, he would utter only 3 words: "I shall see." Then he walked away. His court lived in a permanent state of psychological anxiety. Because the king refused to provide friction, his ministers had no idea if he was pleased or plotting their execution. They spent all their energy trying to interpret his silence, rendering themselves entirely compliant. Lewis understood a rule you must adopt today. Your intelligence is not a badge to show off. It is a concealed weapon. You keep it hidden until the exact moment it is required. But what keeps you trapped in the cycle of explaining? It is the arrogance of empathy. You feel sorry for them. You believe that if you can just make them see the truth, their lives will improve. This bleeding heart philosophy will drag you straight to the bottom of the ocean. The profoundly incompetent lack the very cognitive framework required to recognize competence. They are warm inside their fortress of unearned confidence. When you try to save them, they do not see a healer. They see an invader. Accepting that character is immutable is painful. It requires an emotional amputation. Stop trying to upgrade the people around you. Start managing them. You manage an unreasonable person the exact same way you manage heavy machinery. You keep your hands out of the gears, you stay safely behind the lines, and when it malfunctions, you don't argue with it. You pull the plug. When you finally drop the need to be understood, the weight vanishes. You transition from mere intelligence to absolute power. Intelligence is winning the argument. Power is winning the objective while letting the fool believe they won the argument. You become the invisible hand, constructing the parameters while they play with the cheap toys of validation. If these words have cleared your vision, realize you have only seen the outer defenses. The true, destabilizing mechanics of psychological warfare cannot be spoken of publicly without censorship. The algorithm suppresses the most potent truths. If you are ready to step out of the theater and enter the architect level, click the join button. Unlock what is hidden. Most won't. That is the point.